Thank you. I really was hoping that I'd start this off by talking about the Buffalo Bills going to the AFC Championship, but I did wear my Bills colors, but that's not for this year. Hopefully next year we'll have better luck. I want to thank everyone for coming to the first public safety briefing of 2024. As you know, we did these quarterly last year, and we will continue that this year. And I'm joined today by my Manager of Emerging Initiatives, Sadie McCallum, the Director of Emergency Management, Fred Ryan, our Police Chief, Stefano Napolitano, my Advisor on Violence Prevention Services, Victor Saunders, Corporation Counsel, Patrick Beath, Director of Emergency Communications, Mike Soretto, Commissioner of the Department of Recreation and Human Services, Shirley Green, and Rochester Police Department Chief, David Smith. I want to thank you all for joining me. As I have always said, we wanted to make sure that on a regular basis we keep the community informed about our progress on public safety. I'm here today, as you know, with members of my team. While all of my members of my management team are responsible for public safety strategies, this group works hard on these issues. Every member of my team plays a role in keeping this community safe, but today they're going to focus on some of the work that's happening in their bureaus, and you'll hear from all of them in a second. Sadie and Fred are newer to our team. Fred just joined our team, and we're excited about Fred's experience in emergency prevention, preparedness, and management, and he'll have and play an important part of our public safety efforts as we go throughout 2024. Now, as you've heard me say, we are working to create a safe, equitable, prosperous Rochester by inspiring hope and delivering opportunity for everyone. Safe, equitable, and prosperous. As you know, that order is deliberate. It's deliberate because you can't have prosperity if you don't have equity, and you can't have equity if you don't have safety. So safety, public safety, is our top priority, and despite the meaningful progress we are making, it remains our biggest challenge, and one that will continue to be our #1 priority in 2024. In a few minutes, I'll turn over the microphone to some of these leaders to provide specific details about that progress, but if there is one statement that sums up those details, one takeaway is this: Rochester is getting safety because our public safety strategies are working. And I want to be clear, because there's a lot of pundits out there. None of us are patting ourselves on the back so hard that we're going to hurt our arms, but it is important to look at the numbers and talk about the numbers. You've heard me describe that strategy countless times by now: suppression, intervention, and prevention. It's been our strategy from day one, and we are seeing results. In the 2 years that I've been in office, the 3 metrics that I personally follow on a daily basis: shootings, firearm-related deaths, and total homicides. Those are 3 things that I look at regularly, and they've fallen significantly. I want to remind this community that in 2021, we saw the highest homicide rate we had ever seen in the history of Rochester. Almost 90 people killed by gun violence. Numbers that were just completely off of the charts. In those years since, shootings have declined by 31%, firearm-related deaths went down by 29%, and total homicides are down by 32%. And I would point out, and we got to start breaking these out better, I told the chief this, we had 58 homicides last year, but remember, of those 58, 3 of them were from previous years. So last year, fiscal year, we had 55 homicides. Gun violence is one of the things that I zeroed in on. If you remember, Victor Saunders, his original title was going to be Gun Czar, but people didn't like that title. So we made it Mayor's Advisor on Violence Prevention Services. Gun deaths by firearms have fallen significantly. I was in Washington, D.C. last week in the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and people came up to me unsolicited and said, "Mayor, we saw the numbers from last year. We know you got a long way to go, but good job. We still have work to do." These numbers are moving in the right direction. As I always say, I'm gratified, but I'm not yet satisfied yet. But I'm also reminded of what my mother used to say. Thank God we're not where we were. Thank God we are where we are, but thank God we're not where we were. And we still have a long way to go, but thank God we're not at the 89 homicides that we saw in 2021. I would like to see these numbers continue to decrease at a much faster pace. Anyone that knows me knows that I am impatient. But it is important to stop and celebrate the numbers that are happening. But again, let me just put another asterisk, because you got a lot of talkers out there. No one up here and no one is saying in City Hall that we are jumping up and down and celebrating that we had 55 homicides last year. Let me say that again. We are not celebrating 55 homicides. We are simply putting out the facts to show that there's been a decrease from 2021. And I'm confident that the pace of those declines will accelerate as we continue to implement these strategies. These numbers reflect, as you know, human behavior. And we know that one factor that influences human behavior more than anything else is other humans. And no mayor in this country can control human behavior. We can try to influence it. We can put our prevention, intervention, and suppression strategies in place, but we can't control human behavior. God gave everybody free will, and some people use their free will for crazy things, as I'm sure many of you have seen, because you report on this stuff every day. But you know, every person we arrest and send to prison is one less source of influence, one less hand on the wheel that keeps this cycles of tragedy, shootings, retaliatory shootings spinning. And we have to make sure that we continue to cut it off there. And that's why I'm introducing a new word to that strategy: accountability. We are holding the most violent offenders in our community accountable, and it's leading to the reduction in violence. If you are someone who thinks you want to settle a score with an illegal gun, you'll be held accountable. We do this also by making sure, if the state laws can't do it, we've been successful at this by using our federal partners, which we will continue to do. And I'm sure the chief would mention this. The unprecedented partnership between the U.S. attorneys and ATF has helped us become a model for the country. Our law department is also holding people who allow their properties to become venues for violence by holding people accountable. And Mr. Beath will talk about that as well. We can't have properties that are being used for dens of iniquity, places of violence. We stepped that up last year, as you know, and made sure that we closed down problem properties where a lot of these gun crimes start. Our Code Enforcement Bureau is holding landlords who think it's okay for their tenants to live in squalor and in other living conditions that perpetuate violence accountable. And we will use every opportunity we can to hold those accountable who contribute to violence, either directly or indirectly. And that's the message that I want to make sure that we send in 2024. We aren't just suppressing crime, we are changing the conditions on the street that contribute to violence by holding people accountable. Now, before I start introducing other speakers, I have one other announcement. As we continue making this community safer, I know that perception is just as important as reality. People have to be safe, and they have to feel safe. That feeling is very important. And for people to feel safer, we have to foster confidence. And as you know, transparency has been the hallmark of my administration, because you have to open and be forthright in order to instill confidence. And that's one reason we hold these periodic news conferences and updates on public safety, to be transparent and to foster confidence. So in the spirit of transparency, I'm pleased to announce that our team has begun work to create a public safety dashboard that will allow our constituents and our city council members to check on the progress on our strategies in real time. Yes, you have the open data portal, but this will be another enhancement that will look at all of our prevention, interventions, suppression efforts in real time on our website, and it will be updated on a regular basis. And that it will be another source for you to be able to go and get information in addition to the open data portal. The open data portal is a moment in time. After somebody's shot, that's too late. We want you to be aware of our efforts that we're taking to prevent this stuff as well, and we're going to present that in a way that you will be able to understand it and that we will be able to communicate it to the community. This will make more information available. It will make it more accessible. We have to find ways to make data easy to find and to understand. We have to show people where our strategies are taking us so they can see where these investments are going. As I tell people, the open data portals tell, the dashboard will show. The open data portal tells, the dashboard will show. And thanks to our partnership with Bloomberg City Data Alliance program, we have a citywide data team that is getting really good at finding new ways to put data to work for us. And we are already using dashboards, including to illustrate the response of our Persons in Crisis team and our ARPA expenditures. There you see some of the examples over there of the Persons in Crisis team. So on the left, you see that screenshot of the PIC dashboard, and our public safety dashboard will look very similar to that. So stay tuned for that public safety dashboard, which should be coming at any time now. Now on the updates from our leaders. I want to start with Chief Smith and Corporation Counsel Beath will talk about our suppression efforts and our accountability efforts. So Chief Smith, and we'll start with the Chief, and then we'll follow up with Corporation Counsel Beath. Chief Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Should I start by saying I'm a Steelers fan?
You should.
Too late. As we reflect upon 2023, there is an incredible amount of positives in the reduction of violent crime. This does include homicides, as the mayor mentioned, which peaked in 2021 with 85, down to 58 this past year, a 32% reduction. Shooting victims have reduced from a peak of 419 in 2021 to 289 in 2023, a 31% reduction. Along with these reductions, our clearance rate for murders remains over 60%, including the cold cases, which you may have seen recently. We continue to work on those. This is thanks to the hard work and dedication of the men and women of the Rochester Police Department, who took over 800 firearms off the street in 2023. Each one of these guns has a story of continued bravery, including Officer Vandemar, who's been honored as the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund September Officer of the Month for his incredible bravery, will to live, that he demonstrated on September 30th of this past year. Beyond the hard work of the members of the Rochester Police Department, we've been blessed with significant assistance from our partner agencies. This includes RPD being the first agency in the nation to have an on-call agent from the ATF 24 hours a day to review every firearm arrest that we make for the possibility of federal charges. This initiative has led to over 100 people being charged federally in association with the possession and recovery of over 250 firearms in Rochester. We also recognize last year's significant rise in stolen vehicles, notably Hyundai and Kia. Stolen vehicles peaked in June with almost 400 vehicles stolen in 1 month. We have worked throughout the year with both manufacturers to distribute over 1,500 anti-theft devices and set up a mobile software update site. Additionally, we worked with Monroe County in their introduction of the JEDS program to hold these juvenile car thieves accountable, while at the same time introducing services to their families in order to prevent repeat offenses. Thanks to all of this, we've had less than 200 vehicles stolen per month over the last 4 months. I would like to stand here and celebrate these gains, but we must continue to do more. We've said many times we have a lot of work to do. What does this look like? Thanks to our partnership with the ATF and the Monroe Crime Analysis Center, we now have our own NIBIN machine in the Public Safety Building. This on-site technology allows us to receive gun correlation and information in a matter of hours rather than months. This allows our investigators to not only quickly associate an offender with a gun, but helps us to track crime guns in disputes and to also direct preventative measures. This partners perfectly with our multi-million-dollar increase in GIVE funding that targets firearm-related violence. We have also begun a non-fatal shooting initiative with the Monroe County District's Attorney's Office. They've been gracious enough to assign an assistant district attorney to respond directly to non-fatal shooting scenes in order to work hand in hand with our investigators. Prosecuting non-fatal shootings in the manner that we investigate homicides is leading to additional arrests and successful prosecutions. Additionally, we recently realigned the staffing assignments of our department and created the Violence Prevention Section. This is a dedicated group of officers assigned to go into the hotspots across our city and address patterns of violence and ongoing feuds. Additionally, we've increased the number of officers assigned to our 4 major patrol sections in the hopes of decreasing response times and becoming more fiscally responsible with our overtime expenditures. This has also allowed for a return of dedicated foot patrol officers in the Central Business District. And remember, those changes, we implemented them. It was toward fall last year when we were finally able to get those anti-violence initiatives in place. So with them in place for an entire year moving forward, we're expecting to see greater results. As we move into 2024, we're continuing to work with all of our partners across our community and at the same time working towards increasing our ranks. We are currently also working with the Department of Justice's Public Safety Partnership, which includes a very soon-to-be-released community engagement report, which again, we asked our public safety partners to come and review our community engagement, review our non-fatal shootings. Those 2 reports are completed and we'll be releasing them shortly. However, we are currently 93 officers short in the RPD. The next civil service exam was just announced. It's March 2nd. It has a February 9th sign-up deadline. So I encourage anyone interested in being part of the change in reducing violence in Rochester, sign up and be a part of that change. cityofrochester.gov/join-RPD. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. The NIBAN machine is a game changer, and I can't say enough about the funds for the gun-involved violence elimination program, which has really allowed us to focus on gun crimes and violence. Now I'm going to have Corporation Counsel Patrick Beath, who will also talk about some of the suppression efforts and accountabilities that is coming out of the law department. This is an all-hands-on-deck approach from all city departments to help transform violence and drive down violence in our community. Patrick.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everybody. The Law Department in 2023 has continued to aggressively target nuisance properties. We're doing that in conjunction with the police department, with the neighborhood service centers, and we're using primarily the mayor's gun violence emergency proclamation as a tool to allow us to nimbly react to parties that get out of control at commercial or residential locations and lead to violence. That emergency order allows us to go in and immediately close down a location with the aim of getting the owners of the business or the owners of the building into the law department to speak with the law department, the police department, the neighborhood service center, and come up with an abatement plan to stop the violence from happening again. And we find in the great majority of cases that is a successful approach. We get folks in and they partner with the city to close for a period, to reduce business hours, to increase security, to take the steps that need to be taken to make sure violence ends at some of these locations. In the past year, we've used emergency orders to close 20 properties and then use that as leverage to get cooperation from the owners. Now, as I said, in the great majority of cases, that's all we need to do, but there are some folks that we need to take to court, and we're not afraid of doing that. If we have a nuisance property that we can't shut down through cooperative efforts and the use of the gun violence emergency order, we'll start a court proceeding. And there are 3 of those that I want to highlight for you today. The first one is Flatliners Tattoo Shop. Early in 2023, this tattoo shop located in the Northwest was holding late night parties. They didn't have an entertainment license, they didn't have a liquor license, and violence broke out. We attempted a cooperative approach, it was unsuccessful. So we started a court action and we obtained an order that allowed us to remove the tenant of that property, remove his personal effects, and shut the place down for a year. That ended the problem. The chief spoke a little while ago about the problem we had in the beginning of this year with car thefts. We've addressed that through the nuisance enforcement as well. All City Auto Parts is an unlicensed junkyard that operates in the northeast section of the city. What we found earlier this year is it was also a place where people were bringing stolen cars. We tried to work with the owner to wrap up the business. It didn't work, so we brought him to court. And we're currently in court against that entity, seeking an injunction to shut them down entirely. And finally, most recently, on New Year's Eve, we had an unfortunate shooting at 336 Hawley Street where there were 3 victims. 336 Hawley was a problem over the summer. We used the gun violence emergency order to close it, but they acted back up on New Year's Eve. So we weren't going to use the closure order again. We were going to get into court, which we did, and we obtained an immediate temporary restraining order to shut the place down. We've let the owners know, we've let folks know, we've got police on that location, and we're continuing that proceeding in court. So we're looking forward to 2024. The law department is going to be just as aggressive with these nuisance properties and nuisance owners. We're looking forward to continue to cooperate with the RPD and the NSCs in doing that.
Thank you, Patrick. So when people ask me, why do you renew the gun violence emergency? Is it just because you're doing it? No. This is the reason why we do it. Because it gives us the ability to be nimble and to shut down nonsense before it happens. That's why we have it. That's why we have the gun violence emergency. That's why I renewed it. And that's why I'm going to keep renewing it until I see the 10-year average of shootings that are down. So we're not renewing the gun violence emergency just because it's something for us to do. We're using it because we can be strategic, and instead of using a sledgehammer, we can use a scalpel to target the worst of the worst individuals that wreak havoc in the city. And you may not see big splashes when we do it. Patrick just mentioned some of them, but there's a lot more. But we will continue to do that, and we believe it's working because of the numbers that the chief just talked about and I talked about. But again, and I'll keep saying this throughout, I'll do an asterisk, because I know some people are going to say, oh, they're jumping up and down about 53 homicides. No, we're not. We're showing that you have to have a logic. And the logic of prevention, intervention, and suppression, along with the gun violence emergency and the preventative stuff that you're going to hear about in a second, we believe that the proof is in the pudding and that the numbers over the last 2 years show that it's working. With that, I want to bring up Dr. Green, who will talk about our intervention efforts, and then after Dr. Green, I'll have Victor Saunders talk about some of the other efforts. Dr. Green?
Thank you, Mayor. I have had the opportunity to work with young people for over 30 years, and the work that the Department of Recreation and Human Services does adds to that great work that I've done. Education includes intervention and prevention, dealing with all types of young people. When we talk about violence prevention, we must talk about the interventions that are in place for our young people, and that is what DRIVES focuses on. This year, we will continue to address the mental health needs of our young people. We will continue to provide opportunities for them to enter the workforce, as well as provide them opportunities for growth and development. We want people to know it's okay not to be okay, but DRIVES is here to support you. One of our intervention prevention strategies is providing opportunity and hope through having job opportunities. The Summer of Opportunity is one of the vehicles for job placement. We work with over 30 partners who provide job placements for over 250 young people. We not only look for the traditional employers, we seek non-traditional employers as well, such as a group we work with called Breathe Deep, where young people work in a field dealing with their own social-emotional learning needs. We also provide growth and development work experiences, primarily focused on our 12, 13, and 14-year-olds. They're too young for a job, but they are not too young to learn skills to become future employers. We also provide mental health support in our centers, thanks to our partnership with the Center for Youth and working with Monroe County. This provided embedded supports in the recreation centers. Social specialists are working alongside the participants and the staff to build relationships with our youth so they feel comfortable about talking about their problems. They are able to share their thoughts and feelings in a safe and welcoming environment. Social specialists started in the recreation centers in July of 2023, and within the first 2 months, they met with over 210 youth, and they had over 630 touch points with youth. Topics included relationships, teamwork, anger, bullying, communication, decision-making, and problem-solving, all the necessary tools to make a greater impact on our youth. In addition, we have the Crisis Intervention Services, which consist of the Homicide Response Team, Community Support Counselors, and the Person in Crisis Team. Yesterday, on January 22nd, was the 3rd year anniversary of our PIC team. They responded to more than 10,000 calls last year, and the data confirms what we suspect. The PIC team is helping to save lives. The PIC team responded to 33 calls for people with homicidal thoughts, including 8 with an intent to act. They also responded to 268 calls for people with suicidal thoughts, including 20 that had already reached the attempt in progress stage. This year, we will be making a concerted effort to promote the PIC team services and let people know not only can they call 211 or 911, but they can call 988 to get a direct response from our PIC team. The R Centers encourage parents to register with our R Central to utilize our recreation centers for after-school and school break activities. Our centers keep kids physically active, mentally engaged, and emotionally supported by caring adults. We will be switching to daytime hours during our upcoming February recess, as we did during winter recess. Youth employment and financial empowerment continues to be a focus. Our Summer of Opportunity applications open on February 1st. I want to repeat that. Our Summer of Opportunity applications open on February 1st. Work readiness programs for our 12, 13, and 14-year-olds will continue this summer. We also have our seasonal work applications for our youth now on our city website at cityofrochester.gov/jobs. We will continue working with the Office of Financial Empowerment to teach our young people how to manage their money. We also have many adult services in our recreation center focused on social, emotional, and other activities. Beginning on February 1st, we will have what we call Thursday Thinkers at the Adams Street Art Center, which will be a series on a variety of topics for our adults. We also have workforce development services where we work with 9 partner agencies funded through ARPA to ensure opportunities for our adults in the workplace. We will be holding our first employment year fair of 2024 at the Phyllis Wheatley Library on February 22, 2024, and we look forward to those who are looking for employment to join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Green. Just a couple of things I wanted to highlight. This socio-emotional support, counseling support in rec centers is brand new, and it's already bearing fruit. And the success that we're having with 12 to 14-year-olds who are not able to get work permits yet, but able to get dollars in their pockets and learning job training skills. And then in addition to our traditional job programs, have made a major impact in our prevention efforts. Because if you keep young people busy, they don't have time to get in trouble. They don't have time to steal cars. They don't have time to pick up a gun. They're on a positive trajectory, and that's what's happening in a lot of our centers, in addition to their families, because it's the youth and the adults. Mr. Saunders.
As advisor to the Mayor on Violence Prevention, in collaboration with Department of Recreation and Human Services, Dr. Green, I continue to develop partnerships across city departments throughout the community to advance the Mayor's priority to reduce violence and restore hope in the lives of city residents. Since our last update, members of the Pathways to Peace completed more than 10,000 hours in street outreach and community engagement, as well as interventions within the community. Pathways to Peace and Office of Violence Prevention held its first successful community basketball tournament, engaging community members of different ages for a friendly competition and relationship building. As a result, the Office of Violence Prevention had the opportunity to partner with more than 50 different community-based organizations. The Office of Violence Prevention also collaborated with the Center for Youth, Rochester Teen Court, and Monroe County to provide youth with an evening where they could have productive and safe fun. The Office of Violence Prevention, in partnership with AFSCME, enlisted 26 vendors from various apprenticeship and construction trades to put on an inaugural Rochester Labor Council apprenticeship and career fair, which we are presently planning our second one now. The City and Rochester City School District expanded its agreement to include additional school-based Pathways to Peace youth intervention aides to work in a total of 9 different Rochester City schools. The intervention aides provide counseling and social-emotional wellness supports to students. Office of Violence Prevention staff completed a training in cognitive behavioral therapy by the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform and the Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise curriculum, after receiving the Gang Crime Research Counseling Certification in Chicago, Illinois. The training enables our Pathways to Peace outreach and school-based workers to recognize the early warning signs of a youth who could be heading down a path of violence or gang involvement. The team also learned ways to intervene and change negative behaviors into positive ones. Next month, the Office of Violence Prevention will have successfully completed its first cohort of the Advanced Peace Peacemaker Fellowship model for gun-involved intervention and prevention. Part of the program involved exposing 13 mentees, known as fellows and neighborhood change agents, to educational opportunities outside of Rochester. Last year, the staff and mentees traveled to the Legacy Museum in Montgomery, Alabama, where they visited From Enslavement to Mass Incarceration exhibit. The goal was to encourage participants to develop empathy and cultivate a growth mindset in the hopes of changing previous negative behaviors. This spring will mark 1 year since the city collaborated with nearly 20 Rochester Peace Collective partners. These grassroots anti-violence organizations have been effective in combating violence and the associated traumas through a myriad of programming. The Office of Violence Prevention, in partnership with Commissioner Dr. Green and her team, is being intentional and strategic in its efforts to bring the community together to offer young people positive alternatives so that they can lead hope-filled and productive lives.
Thank you, Mr. Saunders, and for all of your work. We asked him to do a lot, and he is doing it, so I greatly appreciate it. Particularly our work with the Peace Collective, which you will continue to hear more on. This is all about collaboration. Mr. Saunders is responsible for making sure that all the pieces across the city are collaborating to make sure that we are able to reduce violence. I also wanted to add a piece about the Choose Wisdom campaign that Victor launched last year as a good example of messages that we want to get out to the community. And I know many of you have reported on that, so we thank you for that, as well as Dr. Green. Also, before I close it out with our chief, fire chief, I want to just say that no discussion of public safety is complete without the recognition of our teams led by Director Soretto at 911 and 311 in the fire department. Our emergency communications team is at the center of connecting residents with crucial public safety resources. So I want to thank Director Soretto for all the work that his team does to keep our community safe. We have one of the best 911 centers in the nation. In addition, our fire department is a model of excellence in every aspect of professionalism. We are glad that Chief Napolitano joined us in 2023, October, November, December, January. I think it's only been like 4 months. 4 months? It's been 4 months, and he's been working hard, but he's been out there in the community, trying to meet everyone. But this is a very important topic. As you know, we've lost people in fires. Vacant houses are magnets for fires. So not only does the fire department put out fires, they also have to work to prevent them. So I want to have the chief come and talk about those efforts, and then after that, I'll take some questions. Chief.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. As I reflect on the accomplishments of 2023, I'm incredibly proud of the City of Rochester Fire Department's unwavering commitment to life preservation, incident stabilization, and property conservation. Throughout the year, our dedicated team of highly trained individuals demonstrated exceptional skill, responding to a total of 39,294 incidences and protecting approximately $764,769,572 worth of property from damage. However, while never being satisfied, we will continue to work to enrich our community risk reduction programs to continuously improve our life preservation and property conservation measures. Our incidents, I'll break those down for you. As I alluded to in the beginning, 39,294 total incidents. Of that, 22,842 of them were medical calls. And of that, 564 were working structure fires. Of the 564 working structure fires, 25 were multiple alarm fires. RFD's dedication to continuous improvement this past year was evident as we collectively engaged in an impressive 115,591 hours of competency training. We hired 28 new firefighters in 2023. We promoted 13 lieutenants, 8 captains, 1 battalion chief, and 9 deputy chiefs. Our emergency medical services incidents saw a 4.47 increase from 2022 to 2023. The role of our EMTs is critical in providing medical interventions and patient stabilization prior to the arrival of an ambulance. Our opioid crisis response. Addressing the ongoing opioid crisis, our team responded to 1,607 calls related to poisoning, toxic ingestion, or overdose. Equipped with Narcan, our crews played a pivotal role in interrupting the deadly chain of reaction often associated with these overdoses. In our investigations and arrests, our fire investigation unit conducted 1,051 investigations, closing over 75% with definitive findings. The Arson Task Force, a collaborative unit consisting of members from Rochester Fire, PD, and the U.S. Bureau of Alcohol and Tobacco and Firearms and Explosive, worked to make numerous arrests related to 261 intentionally set fires that were investigated. Our community risk reduction activities, we completed 7,400 fire safety inspections. We installed 786 smoke detectors and 543 carbon monoxide detectors. We provided 74 in-person community fire and safety presentations, and we presented fire safety educational programs to over 4,000 students. Lastly, we increased our social media presence, attracting 3,667 new followers related to our community risk reduction efforts. Looking ahead, in 2024, the Rochester Fire Department remained steadfast in its commitment to life preservation and incident stabilization with property conservation. Moreover, I'm committed to increasing access for those individuals desiring to become a member of our department with a concentrated focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion so as to have our department staffing reflect the community that we serve. Lastly, we will actively engage with our community to align our mission, our vision, and our values with evolving needs, building bridges to Rochester's future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. The preventative extra, you can't talk about prevention, intervention, and suppression without including 911 and the fire department. They are a part of all of these efforts. I want to recognize and applaud the efforts and successes of the many teams across the city who have made public safety a top priority. I also want to thank all of our community partners. Many of the things that we work on, that we deal with, are the result of hearing from the community, and it can't be done without the community. So I want to thank them for their support. I also recognize the many governmental, law enforcement, nonprofit, and business partners who work with us every day to create a safe, equitable, and prosperous Rochester. And we are hoping that we continue in 2024 to see a decrease in violence incidences. I will say that one area where countywide we have to focus on is the opioid epidemic, and that will be another, that will probably be a part of our next public safety briefing. Liliana Ruiz, who's leading our efforts around opioids, we will have more to say on that, but that is a major, major issue in our community that we didn't have time to touch on at this press conference, but we will be touching on in the future. So with that, I'll open it up on on topics, and then I'll take a couple of off topics before we, I know you guys got to get back to your newsrooms for the 12 o'clock newscast, so we'll try to move with all due deliberate speed. All right, who's got the first question? Yep, speak up a little bit.
Yeah, Victor Saunders talking about the success of Pathways to Peace, but there was an employee, as you know, arrested. Could this affect taking a second look at how the program works?
Well, if you have someone in your newsroom or in your business that does something that is negative, do you paint all reporters that way? No. So I think that one of the things I will say is that when people engage in behavior that goes against the values of the city or our community, they're going to be held accountable, just like anybody else would in any profession. And I want to, you came in a little late, but I want to refer you back to a statement I made earlier where I said, human beings, if I had the power to control human beings, man, everything would be perfect. But sometimes human beings make choices that they have to live with, and a court of law will adjudicate this situation. But I don't think that it's a reflection on the work of other individuals who are doing the right thing day in and day out.
Well, they're not necessarily requiring reporters to have criminal backgrounds.
That we know of. That we know of. That we know of. Next question.
You can't talk about public safety without talking about the EMS situation.
Yes.
You were here a week or two ago when you had serious concerns about how AMR handled
Yes.
the situation. You asked for information. Have you gotten it? Where does the investigation stand?
Yeah, thank you. Good question. Well, first off, as you know, I was not pleased and still am not pleased with that situation. Obviously, you probably have heard that New York State Health Department has also initiated an investigation on this matter. AMR is still doing their own investigation. We have asked for some information that we've gotten so far, but that still has not told us why this individual was taken off the ambulance. So I'm not satisfied with the why this happened, and I think that that investigation will continue. We'll continue to provide updates as we know more. But what I'm most interested in is how we make sure that something like this doesn't happen again. And why did it happen in the first place? I think that is what we have to, that we have to figure out. So many people rely on ambulance services on a daily basis. The numbers are extremely high. So we have to ensure that if someone is calling for an ambulance, that they're going to make it to their destination, which usually is a hospital 9 times out of 10.
Do you have any concerns, and this is for the chief as well, about how the police officers handle themselves in that field?
I think that we will look at the entirety of that situation as it relates to everyone that was on the scene. But I will say that police officers aren't EMS workers. And when you have an ambulance that's on the scene, my expectation is that the experts, which are the paramedics, take care of the individual that is in a health situation in which they need help. When you have them on the scene, that is their job. So we'll have to have, obviously, as we look at this investigation, we'll have to see, do you get in an argument with someone when they're on the scene and say, hey, no, you can't do that, you need to transport? Those are all things that I think we will discuss. But let's be clear here. The people who are responsible for medical care are paramedics. It's not like a paramedic was not on the scene. The video shows clearly that paramedics were on the scene. And that is what I want to make sure we get to the bottom. So if me or someone of my relatives that live in the city of Rochester, if they call the ambulance, I want to make sure that they get to the destination where they are. And I'm hoping that the investigation will show what broke down, why it broke down, and what consequences there will be as a result of this. But I think the investigation is continuing, and obviously, like I said, New York State is also weighing in on the situation. Yes. Well, not just myself or Mr. Saunders, but I think all of the community. This is a community issue, right? So anytime anyone is accused of wrongdoing that involves multiple law enforcement agencies, not just the city of Rochester, but the federal government, is disappointing. And I think that is something that is sad for us, because we give people second chances in our community, and we hope that they hold themselves to a higher standard, and particularly when we are trying to fight gun violence. We don't want to see people carrying illegal guns or involved in illicit activities. Now, obviously, this is an ongoing investigation, and I'm sure there will be more that will come out, and not just from our agency, but obviously the federal. I'm sure our federal partners will have more to say about this in due time.
As a result of the arrest of Mr. Jackson, are you doing any review of your staff at Pathways Police?
I'll take that question. I think, again, I think it's important not to paint a broad brush, but I will tell you that we look at all employees on a regular basis, because remember, it's just not Pathways to Peace workers that have been involved in behavior that has been a challenge in our community. So I think it's very important to point that out. All departments, fire department, police department has had issues, all departments in our city, because we have human beings that work for us. But obviously we're disappointed whenever it is someone who is supposed to prevent violence allegedly being involved in a situation like this. It's not something that we like to see, but it's something that we addressed and address quickly, as we would do with anybody who had an illegal gun or were involved in illicit activities in our community. Yes. Yeah, I think that all city employees, not just all city employees, go through public background checks, right? But I will tell you, sometimes people make choices that can lead to issues, right? And I think that is important to note. We all have free will. People choose what actions they take, even after a background check, right? So I think that's important to note, but we have a very robust background check situation here in the city of Rochester. But a background check, unfortunately, we can't predict the future. We can't predict what someone is going to do, right? We have background checks for police, fire, our DES crew, our neighborhood and business development crew. We have background checks for everyone. But it can't predict what someone might do or get caught up in the future. But we do have something called recourse. And when someone does something that is off the rails, we hold them accountable. Not only in the court of law, but also within the city of Rochester, right? And those individuals will be separated from the city of Rochester if they are found to be guilty of the crimes that they are alleged to commit. Last question, and then we got to wrap up. Last question. Before I come back to you, anybody else that didn't ask a question besides Ms. Wright? You good? All right. Ms. Wright, last question.
Well, so as Victor and I, we've talked about that there's a reason that Israel people who had brushes with the law because they connect with people who are potentially at risk, and maybe have that connection with them, and could have a better connection and prevent them from.
So what's the question?
So you're saying with the background checks that they're purposely brought in, people who have a criminal background.
But people who are let's be clear here. And you see, this is something but this is something that's very important. I think this is a very important point for everyone in this room to hear. If someone is convicted of a crime If someone right now is a criminal, they are not hired by the city of Rochester. Let's be clear about that. We hire individuals who have done their time, okay? They've done their time, possibly served time, paid back their debt to society, and then we hire them. So let's be clear about that. We're allowed to hire individuals who might have done crimes in the past, right? But have served their time in society. That doesn't mean that they're going to go on and commit another crime. So we don't automatically assume, because we hire a 19-year-old kid that might have stolen a car in the past, that they're going to go and steal a car again. We don't do that, right? We are allowed to hire them. So because we're hiring someone that might have had a criminal past doesn't mean that they're going to be a criminal for the rest of their life. And the vast majority of people who we give a second chance to don't go out and do that again. So what I want to be clear about is when someone makes another choice, let's not use a broad brush to paint on other people who are re-entering into society and doing the right thing. It's why we have a re-entry program here at the city. I am very supportive of re-entry programs for individuals that have served their time, that have paid their debt to society, that want to make sure that they can be able to provide for their family. Why? Because that keeps our community safer. But let's be clear, one individual is not a reflection on other individuals who have paid their debt to society.
No, but Mayor, he has access to the very people you're trying to prevent from committing crimes. So I think Wendy's point, if I'm understanding correctly, is he is in a unique position to have access to people who are the very people you're trying to convince not to carry guns, not to sell.
Correct.
Right. So I think that's the point.
Yeah,
Maybe his arrest is different from a firefighter or a police officer because he's not directly working. They may not be directly working with the very people you're trying to prevent from committing crime.
I think that's a great point. But again, I think my point is that this doesn't. I just want to be clear about the overall reentry piece, right? We want to be clear that anybody that's working with our folks are not going to steer them down the bad path. That's bad, right? We need to make sure that we prevent that. But I think my point is that I think that it's very important that when someone pays their debt to society and maybe and can have a conversation with someone who might be in a situation that they were in, that is extremely powerful. And it is extremely important, right? It is extremely powerful and it is extremely important. But let's be clear. We hope that they don't revert back to that negative behavior, and when they do, they have to be held accountable for it, period, right? They have to be held accountable for it, period. But I think it's important not to paint the broad brush. You always have to check these things in background checks. You have to interview well. You have to make sure that they don't do these things, and we will make sure that we do that. But the bottom line is that anyone that carries an illegal gun or is involved in illegal activity, they're going to be held accountable. And they will be held accountable whether or not they work for the city of Rochester or they work for Burger King. That's the message that we want to send in this community. And I think that is what will happen in any of these cases that we hear. Okay? Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.